The Gabions arrived. A guy who brought them up drove right up the top. He said his van was too small, and he did struggle to turn this pallet round on his little pallet truck in the back of his van. But he'd obviously done it before, and he managed it without slipping off his tail lift. So we measured them. And the first thing we noticed was they're not 500 millimeters, they're 21 inches. So we compared them with the work we prepared earlier, and they didn't quite fit. And then we set to work trying to work out how to actually wire them. It was quite difficult, and we made a right pig's ear of it. It's loose, and it doesn't really look as if it's doing the job to me. So we took it off and wound it on again and see if we could do a better job. Still looks a bit uneven. So we took it off again. I mean, I guess it would have been okay at the back where it doesn't show. It's probably good enough. So we're trying this technique of starting in the middle and then threading in, but we weren't quite sure exactly how to thread them, whether to go round each hole twice or once or what. Tried Googling, couldn't find anybody saying exactly how to do it. So we just kept on doing it, using pliers to try and wrap them round. Whatever way we tried, it was quite brutal on the fingers. Tried a bit of wood. It was taking us ages. It was taking us about an hour to do 4 of these. The 4 corners. And we spent quite a bit of time discussing then how should it go? We thought we would like getting there, but it still seemed to like have kinks in it. Every time it went round, it sort of did a little kink as well. And we thought, well, maybe we're not threading it quite right. So we used a bit of string to see where does the string go, because that obviously goes tight easily. So once we'd seen that, we got a bit of a better idea of exactly how we were trying to thread them. I think we kind of knew already, but that just made it clear that you go in and out of each mesh hole. Then wrap it at the end so it doesn't come loose. And that wrapping at the end is quite hard, particularly on the thumbs. Because you've got quite a long piece of wire, it's awkward to get it to go where you want. But you can do it. You can just keep practicing and you can do it. But it was, at this point, we were still pretty slow. So I wondered if it was something to do with the way the Gabions sat. So I'm using the pliers here to try and make the wires go in the way I wanted them to. You can buy these like spirals to thread in instead of wrapping the wire, but they're very obvious. They give them quite a specific look, which we didn't really want. not emphasize the stone. I think that might be the first time I started wrapping the end a bit further into the gabion, so there's no pokey bits of wire anywhere near the edge that you might brush against. Although a gabion is a fairly prickly sort of thing, I think. I was really keen to get a few done that day. I think that was the first day. I kept going at it. My hands were hurting by this stage, so I was looking for ways of making it easier. It was hard work, and the result wasn't as good as I felt it should be. But anyway, we've done 3 by the look of it. I went home. So the next day, I had this idea about the spirals that you can buy. I thought, I wonder if we can make our own spirals, but make them a bit thinner. So got the broom, then drilled a hole in the broom. Paul is turning the brush end and wrapping this on here to make this little spiral. Don't lose the bits. So then Paul is holding it with the mole wrench behind the barn. We're stretching it out to match the pitch of the gabion. And of course, as it stretches, it gets thinner. So it starts off broom handle size, and then it's a bit thinner, like that. But it was pretty loose actually. So we tightened it by pulling on it and wrap the ends. And then that seemed to be quite a good idea. So we thought we'd use a slightly thinner piece of wood, make it so we could put it in the electric drill. Needed 2 people to do this, and wrapped it like that. Made another little spring, stretched it out to the pitch of the gabions. This is an even thinner one. Possibly a little too thin, because they can be tricky to get them to screw in. Right, that's running normal speed video, so we'll take it off camera and we'll bring it on and then we'll fold it out. Let's go over that, mate. Where are we at? Was it about here? Surprisingly strange to fold up. Like a staircase. Hang on a minute. I'll just set it that out. And just go ever so slow, just like this. Okay, go a bit faster. Oops. Bit wobbly there. Okay. It's strapped because it goes through that hole.
it drop.
Puncture waiting to happen. I quite like the vice for hanging onto the wire. It gives something large to grab onto. Paul has got the short end of the straw. Is that a thing? Is that about the right amount?
Yeah, I reckon that's the twist.
Okay. We cut this kink off the end of here. So this one is the back then. We're putting it in the back because it's a slightly different amount of twisting we're experimenting with. Is that going to go a bit more or a bit less? I think a bit more always.
What do you mean?
Don't bend it.
I don't know what you mean by a bit more.
He wants to go a bit further because otherwise when we try and stretch it, it won't be able to because it will be tightly
A
between.
bit further is a bit arbitrary thing
A bit
to say.
further on, the point needs to go as far as it.
That doesn't mean anything.
That's doing something weird now. Or a bit less would be not going as far. A bit more, a bit further. We've got to have some terminology.
You're speaking another language to me.
Well, we've got to have a language to speak in
A
it.
bit further though, a bit further.
Do you still not know what I mean?
No.
Well, it will either have one turn in each of these, or two. Do you see that?
Is it going a bit further?
Well,
Before,
a bit further or a bit less. They're the opposite.
Before what?
A bit further. It doesn't matter. They're the opposite of one another, so it doesn't matter which way round you use the terms, as long as you agree.
A bit further before it loops behind it.
Like this one, look, see this? It's gone in and out and in on the same bit. So this could have been the other side, it could have been there. That would have been, yeah.
Okay. Past the post.
A bit further past the post. So that means that when we try and stretch this bit here, it's limited by these two vertical bits. Whereas if it went in the next slot, we'd just be able to slide along. When we try and stretch it out, as it is, this bit won't probably go tight because it's going to be pressing on these two, which will add friction, and we won't get any pull on that bit. I think, but I might be wrong. Might be good enough. Right then, ready? Doesn't too bad, does it? See, they're looser than when we were pulling it against the post, wasn't they? But I can't really jerk on you because I don't want to hurt you.
They are loose, I can't see it.
Pull that done then. I'm a bit frustrated I can't pull as hard as I normally pull.
I can move to the post if you want.
Let's try and move to the post. It's tricky. All its bits connected. Okay, brace. Make it any tighter? I must do that, mustn't it? I can't help that. that wrapping around there. Curving the wire back in the opposite direction to the way I'm wrapping it seems to help.
Perhaps you could leave a bit on either end of the spring then, not wound.
You can't thread it through here then, don't think. Paula makes a good point.
That's the puzzle.
One end has no need to be wound.
That bit on the end is going to catch on stuff.
My lovely Nipex wire cutters. So anyway, we worked out there's 15 wraps on a typical one. So we thought, well, why not do a whole bunch together? So we did a whole bunch, then cut them off in 15s, stretched them out a bit, made them easier to cut. There we were, with our 15 little springs. Stretched them out. And there they were. A whole bunch. So then we got to doing them in bulk. And they do seem to work. They seem to work quite well, actually. So Paula holding them against the post, me pulling with the vise. I wrap them much quicker in time lapse. Still wondering why it's so hard on the fingers to do those wraps at the end. At least we sorted the main wraps in the middle out by doing it this way. That was definitely a good help. And we tried measuring how much we needed. So we measured how long it was, measured how much we cut off, worked out how much we actually needed to do the wrap. So then the next one, we cut it off at exactly the right length. Wondered whether that would make it easier. Paula's doing something else, so I used my clamp to clamp the mole wrench against the post, so I don't need Paula to to do it. There's measuring the exact length. It didn't actually make it much easier, so I think we tried it once or twice and then went back to just leaving them whatever length they were. Had lunch, and then made some more. Had to get up and untangle the wire every now and then. Paula said, I was going to wear your trousers out, so I got a bit of wood for it to rest on. Every now and then my glove got caught up, and so Paula had to pay attention and stop if that happened. And there it was, a good spring. Cut it free. Pulled it off, clamped it, stretched the whole thing. Now why didn't we think of that to start with? Stretch the whole thing in one go. Why cut it and then stretch them all? Then we cut them with a measuring stick and a cutter working together. Paula picked up the bits. It's like steel hair. That seemed to work well, so we did another one. Faster, faster, and then it went in a tangle. Probably talking about the philosophy of this particular job. This is what we did. We've laid the wire out. We got a bit of an idea of how much wire needed by then. And look at the foot action as well here. You can see we're using our feet to control the wire, particularly when it gets nearer towards the end. Paula's kicked it with her foot there, and I'm kicking it. Paula's kicking it. And we're looking out for any like loops that might get pulled tight and spoil the process. Perhaps we need a third person to just manage the wire. Stretched it out with it tied to the barn, and Paula went home. I had another one still to stretch without her supervising. I was worried I'd overstretch it, because I do tend to overstretch things. In fact, in the end I understretched it, which was slightly annoying because they're harder to put in, but they work. Pick them up, and as luck would have it, they happen to be exactly the right number for the remaining Gabions. I must say I've struggled to make this video with enough content of a varied nature to make it anywhere near interesting. But I did get faster at this, but it was still hurting my hands. I'm still fed up with trying to wind those things on with my hands. Tried the pliers. The pliers, hard to use pliers for that. Fingers are best, but it's very hard on them. Yeah, that's quite good. That shows it going round quite well. Oh look, something's gone wrong in the middle there. It's not quite right. There, that bit where I'm touching it. Maybe I should have taken it out and tried again, but I didn't. I just pulled it tight and said, oh, that'll be alright. It's at the back anyway. It'll be buried in the soil. No one will ever see it once it's been used. So one of the crucial things is splaying the end out so that as it goes round, it doesn't catch between the two wires that you're binding together and get stuck. I thought, if I have a little coil of wire at the end, that might make it easier. So I wrapped it on the electric drill, and it did actually. That wrapping it on the electric drill was a bit of a fiddle. So the idea was good, but the method was bad. But having that little coil that would go through the holes easily was a good idea in principle. Yeah, we'll come back to the other way, but then I wrapped it in a little coil by hand because it was a bit of a fiddle doing it with the electric drill. So I wound a little coil on the back of it, and that makes it faster and less strain on the fingers. But then I had an idea, maybe I can make a tool that will make it less strain on the fingers. So I've got this bit of metal and bent a little curve on the end of it, and then I ground a slot in it and drilled a hole where the slot had got to go to, and then made it wide enough so the wire could go in it. And then the idea is that it'll help you wrap. But it didn't work all that well. It was a bit too long, it was catching, so I shortened it. That was better, but I don't know, it seems to make the wires wrap away from one another. So anyway, the next one, spun it in, then tried to use the tool on it. It sort of works, but I wasn't that impressed. Used the tool on it again. It wasn't reducing the strain on the fingers that much. I gave up before I'd even finished wrapping that one. So that was a wasted effort, apparently. Don't know if you could have made a better one that would have worked better. If it was very precisely made, maybe. But that wrapper didn't help. But this was a game changer. This piece of plastic tube, all it did was made those little wrapped bits at the end for doing those final twists. It's worked a treat. It's just a bit of drain pipe. Drain pipe with a notch in it. Getting up some speed now. And it does a neater job when you've got those nice neat twists. Coils, let's call them. Makes the twists neater if you have the coils. You see those ones nearest to us, they're quite neat. Having something to attach the end of the wire to that's solid, so that you can give it a real good yank to pull the wire down tight, I think is probably worthwhile. Although they might be okay just as they are. I did experiment with stretching these a bit more to make them more exactly match the pitch of the holes, and it probably was slightly better, but it was a bit of a fiddle. I soon gave up doing that. Didn't think it was worth it. Wasn't worth the extra time it took. Now this sometimes helped. Sometimes when those two pieces of wire were a bit far apart, just because of the way the particular gabion was, it was worth clamping them together when you started threading the spiral in, because my spirals are a bit on the minimal size, a bit smaller diameter probably than would have made it really easy. You'll be pleased to know this is nearly the end of the video. I've got to do a lot more of these. I think I've done about half of them, but I probably won't be making a video of that. I think this is more wire wrapping gabions than anyone really wants to see. I might do a video of wire wrapping the ones that have actually got stones in, because that you can't do that anything like this. That's a much more tedious business. Perhaps I'll find a good way of doing that. At least once they've got stones in, they're held down well. You can yank on them, yank the wire tight. I think that's the fourth one of that one. Off it goes. Back comes another. There's the time. It took me 23 minutes and 43 seconds to do that one. So there. I'm timing this one as well, including standing it up. "23 minutes. So it's still more than 5 minutes for each of these bits, and it looks as if more than half of that is in doing the twisted bit at the ends. This bit. I worked up quite a sweat working at this speed. I don't think you could do it much faster than this. I don't see how. 19 minutes 24 seconds, so under 5 minutes per corner. And it's time to go home. Yeah, that's the tool. It's just a piece of drain pipe with a notch in.